quite a few finishes there, but his record with no sleeves on shirts, he might be undefeated.
And it's very, very hot out today in Charlotte, so this
is
is a free roll, essentially.
Boz on your right, Turtenwald on your left. Jun Mir for these players. Both have had a lot of success with Jun. Owen Turtenwald top hitting his first Pro Tour with Jun. Boswell getting second place at Grand Prix Boston Worcester last year with Jun. As Owen going to start off with a copy of Inquisition of Kozilek. Looks like Boz has done a little bit of mulliganing. He's down to 5 cards. Owen started this game off on 6 cards. You see the hand here for Boswell. Nothing to Inquisition with a Tasker, a Chandra, a Swamp, and a Black Cleave Cliffs.
So for those of you who watch a little Standard, a lot of Standard, you're dabbling your toes in Modern today. Some of these games are pretty confusing. The games involving Amulet and, Urzatron, kind of hard to keep track of everything that's going on. This will be some good nuts and bolts magic.
More your speed.
Right. It's going to be creatures, removal spells, quality threats, that sort of thing.
A little bit of discard.
Yep,
Can't forget about the discard. Most of the time it hits. Inquisition did not, and wow, Owen kept a 1-lander, was not able to find a second land, so he has to pass the turn back. You have to imagine the hand probably involving Dark Confidant there for Turtenwald.
Yeah. But missing with that Inquisition, Boswell's hand, nothing but expensive stuff there. So both players effectively on 5 cards, and now Owen down a land drop to boot.
Boswell has a Tarmogoyf, he'll pass the turn back.
Very savvy here. Owen cannot lightning bolt that Tarmogoyf successfully because of the way that Tarmogoyf works. It's a 2/3 right now, but essentially the instant goes to the graveyard before the Tarmogoyf dies. It becomes a 3/4, and lightning bolt's no good.
Time to fire up the old Tarmogoyf into the red zone. Attack for 2 is going to bring Turtenwald down to 15. Boswell will just pass the turn back. If Boswell's able to find a land, he can maybe put a Chandra in a play. He'll need a second source of red mana, of course, to do that, but then Chandra will be able to run away with the game.
Yep. Even a green source of mana here for the Treetop Village would play.
Here's a Thoughtseize from Turtenwald. Abrupt Decay and Terminator are the cards that have been added to the hand. Tassiger and Chandra are still there.
There's some degree of hesitation there from Owen. You don't want to Thoughtseize an opponent who's missing land drops. On top of that, this Thoughtseize is likely to grow the Tarmogoyf, but this probably beats discarding.
See what Turtenwald does select here. He'll go with Chandra. That seems to be the most threatening in this position.
Well, you can hope that Boswell misses land drops for a little while. If you rip a land and have a removal spell for the Tarmogoyf, then Boswell's just sitting with a pretty reactive hand.
That'll be an attack for 3 from the Tarmogoyf, given that Boswell did add a Planeswalker to his graveyard from Turtenwald's Thoughtseize. Has Turtenwald found land at number 2 yet is the question. Doesn't appear to be the case. Perhaps someone deciding what he wants to discard in this situation.
Still potentially hope here. Boswell just misses for a very long time. And no one draws a land the next turn.
Turtenwald going to discard a copy of Scavenging Ooze. Boswell will take a draw with his 3/4 Tarmogoyf out there.
I believe now a 4/5 as there's a creature in the graveyard.
Now this is true. Should be a 4/5 at this point. We'll get that die changed for you.
Ryan Ferguson and Luke Keyser, please report to customer service. Ryan Ferguson and Luke Keyser, please report to customer service.
Boswell did draw land number 4. That may enable Tassiger number 1. He also has a copy of Olivia Voldaren in hand.
I like casting Tassiger here as the only thing Owen can cast is Lightning Bolt. Just cast an unboltable threat.
And it is going to be a Tassiger there from Boswell. He'll delve away the 2 cards in the graveyard. Tarmogoyf will get a little bit smaller since there's no longer a Planeswalker there. And pass the turn back. Turtenwald will draw a card. Not sure he's got much life left in this game. He'll just discard a Scavenging Ooze and pass the turn back. Not going to concede. Make Boswell attack for the last couple points of damage. Treetop Village is going to get fired up, and it's time to come to the red zone with everybody. Andrew Boswell going to win game number 1 here over Owen Turtenwald. The Jun Mir, at least game number 1, going to go to Boswell.
Usually it's much more of a slogfest than that.
Oh,
a lot of cards trading. Cards like Raging Ravine and Treetop Village are really significant, but, you can also have games like that where someone doesn't draw a second land and it's over pretty quickly.
You promised nuts and bolt magic, and we got no action.
Creatures and removal spells, discard spells, they all got, one person got to play nuts and bolts magic. The other person got to watch nuts and bolts magic happen to them. So that's close enough for my purposes.
I suppose you're
Cyborg!
right. 4 ghost quarters here for Owen, along with 2 kitchen finks, a Huntmaster of the Fells, a Shatterstorm, a whole bunch of one-ups coming, by the way, a Choke, an Ancient Grudge, a Life from the Loam, a Thoughtseize, a Duress, a Grim Lavamancer, and a Slaughter Pact.
I like having an extra removal spell on Slaughter Pact, and I think that the Huntmaster and Kitchen Finks are well served for just attrition matchups in general.
For Boswell, actually, you can tell these players look to have worked together on this deck a little bit. Got 4 ghost quarters here for him as well, 2 copies of Huntmaster of the Fells, and then a bunch of one-ups here for him as well. And Life from the Loam, Thoughtseize, Duress, Ancient Grudge, Shatterstorm, Kolaghan's Command, Choke, Grim Lavamancer, and Olivia Valderin.
Olivia Valderin, 2 copies of Huntmaster of the Fells, and the additional copy of Kolaghan's Command.
Typically in these matchups, the discard is oftentimes the first thing to go. Both players just kind of expend resources on each other, and then when that's happening, you don't want to top deck a discard spell because players typically don't have cards in their hand.
I wouldn't be surprised if both of these players brought in the Life from Below. I don't know if it's necessarily for this matchup. It feels like you're supposed to be pairing it with the Ghost Quarter for matchups like Tron. But there's only so many basic lands in these lists, and you do need to win the fight over man lands.
Sure.
I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah, even some number of Ghost Quarters may be coming in to have answers to Raging Ravine and to Treetop Village.
Yep.
Certainly not out of the question at all.
Wouldn't surprise me if these players, even if they didn't necessarily work together, Owen, of course, very close with Reed Duke.
Yep.
Andrew Boswell, for those of you watching him for the first time, also very good friends with Reed Duke, go all the way back to childhood together, live in the same town. And so even if they didn't work together, both of their lists probably informed a lot by advice from Reed, who plays a lot of Jund in Modern.
That is true. Can't forget, too, that Andrew Boswell actually learned how to play Magic from Reed's brother, Ian Duke, member of the Pro Tour coverage team. So it all comes full circle sometimes in Magic.
It's all good.
It is notable, the 4 ghost quarters in each player's sideboard, 8 between them, along with that Life in the Loam. These guys don't want to lose the big mana strategies of the format.
No, that's a real game plan here, and probably on the balance more effective and faster than something like a couple copies of Fulminator Mage.
Yeah.
No one messing around with Sowing Salt. Sowing Salt, really just a Tron-specific card, does not do very much against Amulet.
And sometimes it's too slow to even interact with Tron.
Yeah.
4 mana is a lot, and it's not like these decks have Deathrite Shaman anymore, and they're certainly not going to play a card like Land of War Elf or Birds of Paradise.
But Ghost Quarter is as fast as it gets.
Yes. Both players take a look at their openers, and Turtenwald's going to mulligan very, very quickly here. Did not like the hand that he just saw. See if Boswell can find something that he likes. Again, remember, last game Turtenwald kept 6 cards, Boswell kept 5.
And we've been talking a lot about, in Modern you need to mulligan pretty aggressively. The games can be over pretty fast. This is the type of matchup that's sort of the opposite, where you keep almost any hands of land and spells. A lot of the cards trade in the matchup. It's rare for someone to win really fast, and so you're much more inclined to keep sketch your hands in this kind of matchup because raw card count matters for so much.
We'll see if Turtenwald can find a better hand. Looks like Boswell sent his hand back too. So both players going to go down to 6. We'll be looking at some smaller hands here in just a moment. Of course, if you are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan. We're here in the booth. We got Nick Miller and Ken Crocker in the sideboard, along with the rest of the SCG Live crew, bringing you 9 rounds of Modern action today, 6 tomorrow. Then we'll cut to a top 8 and have some elimination rounds too before we crown a champion here in Charlotte. At SCG Live, hashtag GPCharlotte all weekend long for your tweets. You can also send directly to me at Cedric A. Phillips or directly to Patrick at Basic Mountain. Taking your questions all weekend long as we watch Owen Turtenwald and Andrew Boswell do battle. The Boz currently up a game due to some mana troubles on Turtenwald's side. Both players taking a look at 6 cards, and we'll see if Turtenwald, who will be on the play here, can find something better to work with.
Perhaps a second land in this game wouldn't be bad.
Would be a good start. We'll start with a Raging Ravine as we are underway here in game number 2. Abrupt Decay, Boswell's first draw. There's a Treetop Village at a passing of the turn. He's done it. All right, there's land number 2, different from the first game.
That's a player of the year type move right there.
That
I've
is.
ever seen 1 second land.
Yep. Confidently passing the turn back. Terminate the draw for Boswell. He'll play a Verdant Catacombs past the turn back. We'll see if Owen wants to fetch right now or not. Looks like he will.
You see Andrew's hand, it's just all cards that trade with stuff. Abrupt Decay, Lightning Bolt, Maelstrom Pulse. Setting in for a long one.
Yeah, that's where the cards that have persist in this matchup actually kind of play a role. Something like a Kitchen Finks.
Yeah, just eats 2 removal spells.
Yep.
Blocks something and then gets killed by something else.
That's how you get your advantage in this thing.
Raging Ravine and Treetop Village are also very important because a lot of the removal doesn't touch those cards either. Abrupt Decay, non-land. Maelstrom Pulse is a sorcery. It doesn't take long for a Lightning Bolt not to be a valid draw.
Yep. An Overgrown Tomb. That'll end the battlefield taps and passing the turn to Boswell. Before Boswell begins his turn, he will, of course, sacrifice Verdant Catacombs. See what land he wants to fish out of the deck. He'll go with an Overgrown Tomb as well. So a little bit of setup here before the removal spells start firing off. Got to keep in mind, too, Planeswalkers are actually pretty good in this matchup because there's so much removal that they don't really have much of an answer for a card like Chandra Pyromaster.
Yep.
You're not going to find Heroes Downfalls in this format.
Although Hero's Downfall would not be bad in the mirror match. If you were only caring about the Jund mirror match, I think you would play some copies of Hero's Downfall.
At a point in time in Modern, that was the thing that people had to do, was only care about the Jund mirror. Think about Pro Tour Return to Ravnica in Seattle, Washington, where that was certainly a big deal.
Bloodbraid Elf and Hero's Downfall? Gas.
Treetop Village is feeling it right now, daring Owen to have a removal spell. Well, I have one. It's a Lightning Bolt. Boswell must be fine with that exchange. Doesn't come as much of a surprise to see that die there.
He's got nothing else going on there. I'm sure that he would prefer for the Treetop not to get hit with Lightning Bolt. I think if it traded with Terminate, he'd be thrilled. And his hand doesn't really need the mana. He has a lot of cheap answers to stuff and plenty more lands to redeploy.
Here's Tasker. Turtenwald will pass the turn back. And Boswell will take a draw. Picked up a copy of Lightning Bolt for himself. Here's a Terminate to take care of the 4/5. A Stomp Ground on the battlefield tapped and a passing of the turn. We're going to see a lot of this. Creatures will be dying quite a bit. Both players going to exhaust each other and then try to find a trump.
A slightly risky play there from Boswell. His hands just bolts, Abrupt Decay, and Maelstrom Pulse. If Owen fired up the Raging Ravine and hit, it would require 2 bolts next turn from Andrew. I guess if Andrew plays the Stomping Ground on tap, it just signals too much information. He's willing to run the risk, but Owen could have punished him quite a bit there if he simply drew a land and fired up the Raging Ravine.
Looks like it may be time for Liliana. That's going to tick down and take care of Scavenging Ooze. It's all about how you deploy these resources, too. That's what actually is really interesting about this. Scavenging Ooze is going to eat Tasker, so Turtenwald's going to get a life out of this exchange. Now there's a copy of Bloodstained Mire and a passing of the turn. Lightning Bolt ready to defend on the Liliana. Boswell with 4 cards in hand, Turtenwald the same. Both players with a lot of removal in their hand. It comes as no surprise.
And every time in the Jund mirror match, you can extract a 2-for-1 out of your opponent. It's so good.
Yep.
If Owen has to use a Bolt or an Abrupt Decay here to finish off Liliana, that's just great news for Boswell. We know Boswell also has Lightning Bolt available. So if Owen spends his turn firing up Raging Ravine and trying to take care of Liliana, great tempo swing here for Andrew. Getting to trade a Bolt with a Raging Ravine is awesome in this matchup.
Yep. Turtenwald does sacrifice a Verdant Catacombs. There's a Stomping Ground, so it took 3 there. He's going to fire up Raging Ravine. Looks like this Lightning Bolt's going to work its way into this. Trigger on the stack before the Raging Ravine does get a counter. Boswell's going to sacrifice his Bloodstained Mire. Search up some sort of way to produce red mana. I think we'll see that Lightning Bolt take care of the Ravine. There's a Blood Crypt. I like Boswell's positioning now.
Yeah, that was just a great turn. Great 2 turns there from Boswell.
Boswell will take a draw.
Oh, and if you're wondering why people go to cards like Thragtusk for the Jund mirror, you're seeing it right here.
Yep.
This is just a long, drawn-out slogfest where Players are trying desperately to 2-for-1 each other. And cards like Threat Tusk do that guaranteed.
Turtenwald will just pass the turn back. Saw Turtenwald discard Lightning Bolt to Liliana last turn. So must not be too concerned with the Planeswalker.
Well, he has Abrupt Decay to get Liliana off the table in the event that he ever draws anything. And he may feel like his hand's bad enough that he would rather, if he would rather trade one of his cards for Boswell's cards at this stage.
Swamp and Maelstrom Pulse. Pass the turn back. Here comes Abrupt Decay. Turtenwald will draw a card now. See him reaching for the graveyard. We'll see if he has anything nice to do with that. It'll be Kitchen Finks. Well, that's a walking 2-for-1.
Yep.
Little life gain action too, of course. Turtenwald up to 19. Life total's in favor of Owen right now. We'll see if Boswell wants to use a removal spell or two on the Finks. It looks like he will wait patiently and just untap his Raging Ravine.
I believe Boswell's picked up a copy of Kolaghan's Command. Another card that's just perfectly suited for the way these games play out.
Discard return a creature.
Yep.
Yeah. This will work. This will work too. Shock that, make you discard perhaps. By the way, a slice of Kolaghan's Command is going to be really good here. Owen's going to discard Terminate. Kitchen Finks will persist. It's just a 2-1 right now, and Turtenwald is out of cards.
And liable to just getting run out by the Raging Ravine that Boswell has left over.
And this makes you wonder if Turtenwald did board in a Ghost Quarter or two, given Raging Ravine's presence. Maybe a Tarmogoyf, a Scavenging Ooze off the top. And there are some situations that's a really big draw, but given Boswell's hand how much spot removal he has, there's an Abrupt Decay. Not the best draw you'll find. Turtenwald are going to remove a creature here.
Boswell's just grinded out a couple extra 2-for-1s compared to Owen, and now we're here, where Boswell has 2 cards in hand to Owen's 0, 5 lands in play to Owen's 4. You're really kind of just counting up the cards in this kind of matchup.
Now here's a Tarmogoyf, a very hard to kill threat. It's so big.
Probably a 5/6. I think there's a Planeswalker down there.
Typically a 4/5, but it's a 5/6 now because of Liliana being in the graveyard. Turtenwald with his 2-1 Kitchen Finks on the battlefield, being outclassed currently. There's a Verdant Catacombs, pass the turn back. Boswell will use a Lightning Bolt to clear away Kitchen Finks, and now he's going to start getting pretty aggressive.
Yeah, the coast is clear for him to really shift on the offensive here. Tarmogoyf plus Raging Ravine can close this game out very quickly.
Yeah, this will be an attack for 9 points of damage here. Turtenwald's going to go down to 13. Boswell with the Swamp. That's his last card. Player's going to play off the top now. This is a classic Jund game. All Turtenwald can do is pass the turn back. He needs to hope to draw removal here, and Boswell needs to hope he doesn't draw any of it. He's got a clear advantage at this point. Boswell going to fire up Raging Ravine again, it appears. Time to get in here. A little counter on the Ravine. Turtenwald's going to take a bunch of damage yet again. A forest in the passing of the turn. Can Turtenwald find anything to do? He's got a Dark Confidant. He'll pass the turn back.
Desperate times.
Indeed. Boswell will take a draw step. He'll fire up Raging Ravine yet again. This is an attack for lethal. Counter, and that is going to do it. Andrew Boswell is going to win this match here over Owen Turtenwald. 2-0. The Boz will move on to 7-0. Jund, one of his favorite decks in Modern. And if you think of Andrew Boswell across multiple formats. When we watch him play Legacy, it's oftentimes a lot of sneak and show. We watched Standard recently, as we saw at Grand Prix Miami, it was Obs on Aggro. And now here in Modern, Jonas' deck he's been playing for a very long time. He's the kind of guy who plays just one deck, gets really good with it, and as you can see right here with Jund, he's pretty good at it. He's 7-0.
And I'm imagining both players in that matchup cut the discard out of their deck.
Yeah.
Because all the stuff just trades.
Yep.
And Thoughtseize and Inquisition, as the game goes on for a long time, are cards that you can draw and have not do anything. So the game it just becomes about threats and removal and trying to engineer as many 2-for-1s as you possibly can. Boswell was able to do that. Liliana the Veil contributed quite a bit to that end. Kolagon's command as well was very powerful, clearing the Terminator out of Owen's hand. And Owen's really only 2-for-1 of the matchup was the Kitchen Finks, which almost didn't count because Boswell was able to overpower it pretty easily.
Yeah, he got